I'm Tom Vessel.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
And today we're taking a look at a very anticipated game, mostly because it's not really a sequel, but it's a follow-up to Flamecraft, and with the same artist, people were very anticipating this game, Critter Kitchen. Got a lot of buzz, did very well, crowdfunding, and is now out. And we're taking a look at this game in which you are a chef making dishes for a infuriatingly specific, fancy master chef who is not Gordon Ramsay. And I know this because, as is norm these days, everything in this game is an animal.
Well, some people have said that Gordon Ramsay is an animal, but I think they're being a little bit too harsh on Gordon there. But yeah, this critic definitely lives up to the reputation that food critics often get.
Actually, it can't be Gordon Ramsay because one of the player powers in this game is a play on Gordon Ramsay. I forget what it is. It's like, I don't know. Anyhow, you're a chef. You're making stuff. Mike's going to show us how to play. We'll be right back.
Okay, here we see a game of Critter Kitchen all set up and ready to go. For the purposes of this overview, I set it up for a 3-player game. Depending upon the number of players in the game, you're going to have some locations that may not be included along the waterfront here. And you'll easily know what those locations are because on the back, they're going to have a number. So if your player count is lower than the number on the back, then you don't include them. So in a 3-player game, the air docks and Lantern Lane are not going to be included in that play. Every game is going to have the soup truck at the very beginning and the Chef Academy at the very end. We're also only seeing the player area of the green player, and I'm actually going to remove this player screen just for the purposes of seeing the board better, but just know that every player's screen has some nice kind of player aid information. Maybe most important is the distribution of the different tiles per each ingredient in the game. So it's telling you that there's only one 7 value for each ingredient, and there are 2 spices for each ingredient, and then the other values accordingly. All right. So at the very beginning of the game, someone is going to be determined to be the maitre d', and really that person is just going to be responsible for the kind of cleanup at the end of each round and setting up for the next round. Now, we've already done all this just as a part of the setup, so we'll have done all of these things. The new challenge card is right over here, and so this is one of the challenge cards that are in this game. The first one, the Ultimate Melt Challenge, and it's telling you what ingredients are going to be needed to complete that challenge. This is a game that is played over 7 rounds, which is tracked by this, in the deluxe edition, this nice kind of pepper grinder. And keep in mind that this is the deluxe edition of the game. It's the only version of the game that we have access to, so this is what you're seeing, but just know that components will differ in the standard retail edition of the game. So you're playing through 7 rounds that are constituting 3 days, and the days are going to be delineated by the serving of a meal. So this is the end of the first day when you're doing the first challenge meal, the end of the second day when you're doing the second challenge meal, and then the third meal is the critic's meal, which is going to be a hopefully 7-course tasting for this game's critic, which is the mouse. This is the recommended first critic for players, although there are many other critics in the game that all have kind of different twists and turns, things that they're looking for. In the case of the mouse, they like cheese, right? On brand. And so this just is telling you that you are going to be getting more points for your cheese tasting at the end of the game, and you can actually have any amount of cheese, whereas normally for the tasting menu, which you're going to be presenting using this board, that last tasting menu, you can only have the best example of each ingredient you have, although in the case of the mouse, you can stack up that cheese because they really like cheese. All right, the other things that that you do is you make sure that there's a bisque in the soup truck, which we do have, and then you make sure that you are refilling ingredients, which we have done, and getting a sous chef in the Chef's Academy, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Okay, over the course of the game, you're going to be taking through different phases. The first thing that you're going to be doing is you are going to be planning. You are essentially sending out your 3 assistants. You have a small, medium, and large assistants to go out to these locations to get ingredients for your meals that you're going to be serving, okay? And each assistant works slightly differently. The smallest assistant here is the fastest, and so they're going to get first choice at each of the locations. However, they're small. They can only bring back 1 ingredient. The medium size is not quite as fast as the smallest, but they're faster than the biggest, and they can carry 2 because they're a little bit bigger. Whereas your largest assistant can go, they're going to go last, but they can get up to 3 items if those happen to still be at the location that they are sent to. So every player in their player color is going to have a deck of location cards that correspond to the locations out there. The cards that you see face down, they are the ones that were removed for this 3-player game. And so you're going to be choosing where you're sending each of your assistants. So let's say, for example, I wanted my little assistant to go here to the Garden Top Shop because there's a 7 value bread there, which could be potentially valuable. So I would go ahead and find the Garden Top Shop, and I would play it face down. Let me move this down, above where my small assistant is, okay? Then I would decide where I want my medium and large. Let's say for the medium, I want them to go to the Midnight Merchant, so I place that there. And for my large assistant, let's say I'm going to go ahead and send them to the Chef Academy. So I would do that. The other players are all going to be doing this in simultaneously. So everyone is choosing the locations that they're going to go to. Once you have chosen everybody, you're going to simultaneously reveal the locations and send out your assistants to those spots, okay? Garden Top Shop, that goes in the first spot, that's the first queue. This is going to go in the second queue of the Midnight Merchant, and then this is going to go in the rightmost queue, which I've made hard for myself on camera by putting it way over there, okay? Then, as I said, the other players are going to be doing this in turn. So let's say that we had something along these lines, and we had something along these lines. Just for sake of fun, we're going to do this. Okay. Once everyone has placed out all of their assistants, then you're going to evaluate each location one by one, starting at the soup truck and ending at the Chef Academy. So, the soup truck, at the beginning of the game, the only ingredients they have are soup. However, one of those soups are a special soup, which is known as a bisque. And this is, in all intents and purposes, works as a soup, but it's worth more. It's worth 3 points instead of 1. So, this being a medium assistant for the purple player, they would take that bisque, and then there's unlimited soup at the soup truck, so since they can carry 2, they would take those 2 ingredients back to their board. Then we would come here. So here we see the first instance of a tie. So in this location, what you're going to do is you're going to look up to the priority track. At the beginning of the game, that is just randomly set. So in this case, it's showing that red has first priority, then green, then purple. So since there's a tie here, red is going to get first choice at that, and they're most likely going to take that 7 bread. Okay, so let's assume that they took that. Now, since it was the first ingredient taken at a location and there was a tie, whoever was the first will now go to the back of the priority line. And so green would get their chance. Let's say maybe they took that 5 wine and they just put it back there. All right. Once the locations have been evaluated, then you can just bring them back to their boards. Any ingredients that were not taken at a location are going to move to the Chef Academy. All right, so in this case, purple would get something first, red would get the other 2. The large red here would get all 3 of these, which is great. One of the things that they would get is a rumor. So within the bag, you've got these rumors that are going to be telling you a little bit of information about the critic for that game. They might be scoring possibilities. They might be, just other clues about what they might want. This happens to be a wild rumor. So let's say, just for the sake of this example, that green had actually gotten a rumor. They would choose one of the 3 available rumors and they would place it there. So let's say for this example, they went ahead and they placed it as a question mark. When you get access to a rumor, you will take that card, secretly take a look at it. Okay? This one is telling you that at the end of the game, there's a potential to score 2 points here if your remaining soup quality is equal to or higher than the highest value bread that you have before spice. I'll explain that in a moment. So this is an extra scoring opportunity. At this point, only the green player knows about it, although other players may have an opportunity to look at them as well. In addition to scoring cards on these rumors, you might find something like this. This critic, this mouse, is not only a big fan of cheese, they're a fanatic of fish. And so during final scoring, you would double the quality of your fish course. So cards that are going to give you some kind of information about the final tasting menu that you're going to be giving. All right. The Midnight Merchant is a special location in that when it's time for it to evaluate, you don't know what's going to be there. You just know there are going to be 5 ingredients. So you would actually fill those out when it's time to evaluate that location. I'm going to keep them upside down just because I want to keep this somewhat snappy. All right. One other thing that you should notice is these spices. And so we saw on that player screen that for every ingredient there are 2 spices. The way they work is that they are going to double the value of whatever ingredient they are placed upon. So right now, this meat tile is worth 7 points. If I put the spice on it, it's now worth 14. So that's how the spice tiles work. And then at the Chef Academy, the special thing there is that every round there's going to be what's called a zoo chef, and it's going to be a special assistant. So a player will have 4 assistants in the round after they choose this. So in this case, the first zoo chef that came up was Ginger the Fox. It is a medium-sized zoo chef, and what this is saying is that you're going to actually send Ginger to a different location, so you'll have 4 locations that whoever got this would get, and after the last pick they would get to just draw an item from the token bag. Pretty great. There are a lot of these different zoo chefs that you can choose from in all 3 of the different sizes: medium, small, large, and they all have special abilities that make them kind of unique, and no matter what, you are getting to send a 4th critter out for the round after you get them. So that's the general idea between the flow of a round. You're going to continue to go through this process. You're going to get more ingredients, flipping over the new challenge card so you can see what the 3 potential meals are that you are going to be serving. When you get to the end of the first day, you'll see that 3rd card, but then you're going to place this hold token over the rightmost ingredient, because what you're going to be doing is choosing how many of these challenges you want to try to complete, okay? You don't have to complete any of them. However, if you decide to do so, what you're going to do is you're going to take the ingredients that you have collected, and you have to have 1 of each of these ingredients at least. You can stack ingredients when you're doing these challenge meals. So you can put as many bread tokens as you have, and you would be adding those values together. If you perhaps don't have any of 1 or 2 of the ingredients, you can substitute soup or bisque, since it essentially is soup, to count as one or both of those. But you always have to have at least 1 of the 3 challenge items to be able to complete that challenge. And what you'll do is you're going to be adding up the values all together and looking at the chart here. If your total value of your meal is between 6 and 12, you'll get 1 point. If it's between 12 and 20, you will get 2 points, sorry. And if it's 21 or above, you'll get 5 points. And then at the end of this 3rd round, first day, you cannot keep more than 5 ingredients and spices count as well, maximum, into the next round. The soups do not count. They're simmering on your stove. So you're going to do that 2 times. And then finally, for the 7th round, you are collecting ingredients for this last critic's meal, all right? And the critic's meal is a special tasting meal that you're going to be presenting to the critic. Essentially what you're going to be doing is you are going to be taking the best of all of the ingredients that you have, and you're going to be placing them on this board, okay? And this is going to be your 7-course tasting meal. Maybe you don't have 1 or 2 of the ingredients, but you're certainly going to want to try to. So you'll have the best of each one. However, in the case of the mouse, you can stack cheese. You can't normally do that. And that's going to be the final meal that you are presenting. And in addition to that, you're going to be doing some scoring beforehand, all right? So you kind of go along this kind of chart here, and all ties are friendly throughout the game. Whoever has the most soup at the time of presenting the critic meal, you'll get a point. If you were able to serve 1 at least of each of the 7 courses, you get a point for that. You'll go through each course, all of the 7 ingredients, and whoever has the best of each will get a point for each one. You could potentially get 7 points right there. Again, friendly ties. You would look at any of the scoring cards that might be in the rumors. I showed you a couple there, or at least one. If your critic has a bonus score, which in this case it does not, and then you're going to figure out your final score by adding up the values for each of your ingredients. And the way to keep track of that is on the back of your player board. You flip it over, and then you're going to be able to keep track of your final scoring for each of your ingredients, moving it along. You can see that it's not 1-to-1 value to points, okay? Basically, when you, anywhere from 1 to 7 points is going to be worth, 1 to 7 values is going to be worth 1, and you're going to keep going. If you go past 70, you will take a 10-point piece, and then you'll keep going. And then you're going to add up your points, and whoever has the most points at the end of 7 rounds, at the end of the tasting menu, is going to be the winner of Critter Kitchen. Let's head back and let you know what we think.
So Critter Kitchen is going to live and die for a lot of people on its artwork. And I think, Mike, that we can both agree the artwork here is fantastic. It's just a mixture of the cute, but fantastical, and it's just fun.
Yeah, it's great. And you mentioned that it's kind of it's not a sequel to Flamecraft, but it's in the same kind of world. And that's this world that's created by Sundara Tang, the artist. And everybody that has seen the game for the first time are asking, is this Flamecraft? You know, because it looks similar. Even though this is not dragons, it has a very similar just vibe and appearance. So it's very whimsical, very, very attractive, beautiful art.
And until someone persuades me otherwise, I'm going to have to assume that since this game offers meat as one of the choices, that the meat is humans. Because who else would be, you know? But anyway, no, it's not that. Don't run away. But the rest of the game has just a bunch of components. Now, there's a fancy deluxe version, and then there's a regular version. And the difference there is mostly in the fancy deluxe version, they have completely unnecessary game tray stuff. Is it game trays? But
I believe it is actually game trays, yeah. I'm not positive.
The shield holders are unnecessary, in my opinion, because I think they're actually a detriment to gaming because you can't really hide your stuff behind them. But it does have very nice upgraded stars. It has very nice upgraded wooden recipe pieces, while those are just cardboard in the basic game. The meeples are the same in both. But both, and I don't know, Mike, how you feel about this, both regular and deluxe version have so much unnecessary pieces for the chef, the sous chef or whatever chef you get from the chef school. Whenever you do that, you get a piece. In the deluxe version, it's a meeple, and in the regular version, it's a cardboard cutout. But you have to find the right one to match that chef, and literally it could just be the same one because only one person has one in a round. They could have just had one meeple cover that for all of them. And the amount of space it takes up in the deluxe version is astounding. For a single piece, they have an entire tray of, I think, 25 pieces.
Yeah, I generally agree with what you're saying. First of all, with the kind of the deluxe insert, it actually doesn't work as well as it should. I think it requires a much bigger box than it needs to be. The only thing I would say about the Zoo Chef thing is that, they do have small, medium, and large Zoo Chefs. So
Yeah,
maybe
I can see that. Maybe you have 3 pieces there.
Right, maybe 3, right? Now, I totally am on board with that because what I do is at the beginning of the game, during setup, is I look at the cards, the zoo chefs that are going to be available throughout the game, and I find those so that I'm not searching for them in the middle of the game. I keep all the small ones, all the medium, all the large ones together during setup. It helps a little bit, but you're right. It could have been much quicker, much easier just to have 3 kind of generic zoo chef pieces, small, medium, and large.
The game doesn't really have a lot of difficult rules to understand. Although I have found that where you can struggle in the teaching of this game is trying to explain the concept of the final scoring, which is not something you can really even skip because the final scoring can be half or more of your points. And yet it only takes place after the 7th round. Now, you are to be building up to this the whole time, but I would not be surprised if first-time players get caught up in the dishes they're making throughout, which is important to do. But it's more important if you have, if you get one of the 7 value foods, it's probably better for you to save that to the end of the game because it's almost a guaranteed 2 points. 1 for having the highest number, if you can spice it up, and 2 for, 7 points worth of stuff in that final meal is about worth a star, somewhere around there.
I think it's exactly that. Yeah, 1 to 7 will give you 1 star. So you're not quite getting into that next line. But you're absolutely right. Just as a matter of course, pun intended, I never use a 7 ingredient on the challenge meals. To me, what the challenge meals are most useful for is the fact that you can stack ingredients on the challenge meals, unlike on that final tasting menu, unless you have a critic that lets you do it, because you have limitations on the amount of ingredients you can carry over, right? So you can have 5 at the end of the first challenge meal, 10 at the end of the second challenge meal, kind of leading into that last round. So they can be helpful for that. So I guess the potential you have is if you're able to get 21 or more on all 3 challenge meals, that can get you 12 points. Sounds like a lot, and it is, but really where you, like you said, where you are getting your most of your points, especially if you plan it this way, is in that final tasting menu, especially if there are scoring cards in the rumors, which there most often will be, that really only account during that last meal. So I agree that the challenge meals can be red herrings for first-time players, very much so. I would never use a 7 ingredient on a challenge meal. That's just my personal strategy.
Now, that being said, teaching a game other than that scoring part, it's so easy to understand. Hey, small guy gets 1 thing, goes first. Medium guy, 2 things, goes second. And then the tiebreaker thing, that's mostly understandable, although the whole thing, if you're not the first to get something, you don't break it. It's a little odd on the ruling there. And I kind of complained to Mike about this after my first play of the game. I don't know a good way to fix this because sometimes you win a tie on something you don't care about, which causes you to lose the tie on that thing you so desperately wanted.
Yes, that can happen, and it has happened. But to me, that's the one kind of non-intuitive thing in the game is the fact that you might have several tiebreakers at one location, but it only is going to change the priority when it's the first ingredient taken from a location. That's something I feel like you have to reinforce to new players because it's the only thing that's not intuitive. Everything else is pretty intuitive. Other than
reasoning is though, it just seems like a weird. I mean, it's probably for game balance of some sorts. It just almost feels like an unnecessary rule.
Well, I think there has to be something there about, because otherwise you would never, because that priority list is set up as random at the beginning of the game. Otherwise it would stay that way throughout the whole game. And I can see that wouldn't work. I just don't think it would work to have the same player always getting first priority throughout the game. So they needed to do something.
No. I understand that. I'm saying I don't understand why it's only if it's the first piece of food taken. That just seems like an odd thing.
Maybe they felt like it was too much shifting of the priority list. I don't know. But yeah, I am curious about that as well.
But getting the food and getting the stuff is easy. The locations, they have a few, locations depending on player count. But it's fun to have everything move down to the end and then move back to the soup kitchen. And at one point you're like, hey, soup's not a bad thing. I see every player I've taught this to has that same realization at one point. They're like, I don't want soup. And then right before it's time to score, they go, well, some soup wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, especially for the challenge meals, because they can substitute one or two of the ingredients on a 3-ingredient card, and frequently do, I've found. So yeah, food becomes more, the importance of food, or soup, I should say, sorry, and bisque especially, becomes more apparent the more you play the game. A lot of times an interesting move on the first round is to throw your large assistant there, because you can almost always get a soup and or a bisque and 2 soup, because very rarely do people go to that location on the first round.
They do, but everyone wants to go to the one with the 5 ingredients no one knows, because those are amazing.
That's my favorite location. The Midnight Merchant is by far my favorite location in the game, because it's a push your luck location. It's fun, right? It's fun. But like you said, it is a heavily trafficked location. So if you're sending your big critter there, you may not get 3. You're likely not going to get 3.
But even the chef's location, that's a fun one to go to too, because you get a worker with a special ability for the following round if you're first, and you get the leftovers from another place, which could be amazing if no one's gone to a location.
Yeah, you can have all 3 of those ingredients just shift right over. Absolutely.
Now, on that note, so I'm going to talk here real briefly. I don't normally do this, but I played the expansion. With the expansion adds 15 modules that you can add to the locations. Those modules are interesting, but I think you would have to play the game a ton for it to matter. They make minor changes. You're getting balloons or flowers or trophies or ice cream or who knows what from each of those locations. But what I did want to mention about the expansion, it also, for some unknown reason in humans, they were like, hey, I think people want to play this up to 7. Why? Okay, so first of all, no. I can't imagine playing this with 7, because I think that would cause people to have a bad game, because you would often go to a spot and get nothing. It adds more locations, great. But still, I noticed, I played this game mostly with 3 and 4. And the difference between those 2 numbers was significant.
Yeah.
In 3, there was way less ties. And yes, it still happens. Still like, you took my thing. In 4, you just assume you're going to tie.
Yes.
It's going to happen more. 5, even more so. The number of locations they add doesn't seem to offset that. And with 6 and 7, that's just insanity. I'll just say right now, I can't imagine getting this expansion unless you are like a Critter Kitchen fanatic, or you bought the Kickstarter and you got it, right? It comes in that deluxe version. It comes in it. But that just, too much, I think, there in 6 and 7. I wouldn't even play this at 5 when it comes to player count.
Yeah, I would probably stick to 4 at the highest. Because this is a pretty snappy game, all things considered, and some of that would go away. Some of the things are simultaneous, right? You're all kind of doing your planning at the same time, putting your cards above the things. That's all kind of done at the same time. Sending them all out is done at the same time. But the evaluation of each location is just going to be longer with more players. It's not a question. It's going to be, and you're going to be going to more locations with more players.
My complaint isn't actually about the number, the time length. It's just that you're going to get beat up. So that comes down to my final thoughts here. I like this game a lot. As a quick aside, people, even though the games aren't the same, people are going to say, do you like it better than Flamecraft? Just because they look similar. So no, I like Flamecraft better. But I do like this game. I'm giving it an 8. I think it's very enjoyable. I think the theme is fun. I'm a big fan of food themes, of collecting food to make dishes. I think the idea of taking rumor tokens to look at something, it's been done before in games like, Galaxy Trucker of all things. But in this one, it can really matter, right? And so I like that aspect to the game. I think that it just is the right length. I think an 8 would outstay its welcome. 7 is about perfect. There's a lot of, I can't believe you put your one guy there when I put my one guy there. There's some of that. That's fun and it's interesting. My only concern is I think that it's possible you could possibly just have a couple really bad turns where everyone beats you out, it seems, everywhere. You just don't get a lot of stuff, and that's going to be exasperated with higher player counts. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, so I'm giving it an 8.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to you, Tom. I am going to be bumping mine to an 8.5. I do think that it crosses that barrier for me for a number of different reasons. Number one is that I just feel like this is going to be a game that, well, Flamecraft had wide appeal, and I think it's fair to compare this to Flamecraft just in the sense that it's going to be appealing to the same type of people, I think. However, I almost think that this one might be a little bit more widespread because it's not focused on one, as stupid as it sounds, it's not focused on one type of creature, right? There are going to be some people that just don't like cute dinosaurs. But here, you've got all kinds of stuff. You know, if you like otters, you got otters. If you like wolves, you got wolves. If you like, I mean, there's a lot of creatures out here. And I really do prefer this theme. Most time in cooking games I found, they're going to be the type of games that are going to be like crisis management games or real-time games. I like neither of those. And so I have not really found many cooking-themed games that I've liked because I don't really like crisis management games unless it's something like Pandemic, right? Or real-time games. And so finally, a cooking-themed game that I really like what it's doing mechanically. And so the combination of the theme, the really nice production, I'm going to take your word on the retail edition, and I'm glad to hear it actually because I had not seen a retail edition before, and the mechanics of the game, the mostly simultaneous play. I really think that this gets it over that edge to an 8.5 for me. That's not even taking the expansion into consideration. This is just in the base game. I have played it a bunch. I taught it a bunch at Dice Tower West. I have taught it outside of a convention setting, and it's gone over very well. Actually, there has not been one person that I've taught it to that did not like it. So that's encouraging to me. It means that it's probably going to get to the table more often. So an 8.5 for me.
Well, there you go, folks. That is Critter Kitchen. Check it out. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
And you'll find us in the kitchen. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.